there's a short life in
Why do you think that is? What the creative side is?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take. You're going through so much to try and deal with life.
Not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
No one wants him mentioned.
The entertainment industry has always had its share of whispers. Those dark, elusive rumors that linger in the shadows, waiting for just the right moment to explode into the public consciousness. But rarely does a storm like this hit, where the whispers are no longer whispers but full-blown accusations, lawsuits, and allegations that threaten to peel back the carefully curated veneer of fame and fortune. And right at the heart of it all is Sean Diddy Combs, a man who once seemed untouchable, now dragged into the spotlight with claims that are as shocking as they are damning. But what's even more intriguing is the ripple effect this has had, not just on Diddy himself, but on those orbiting him, starting with the explosive revelations from Terrence Howard, a veteran actor who just blew the lid off what he claims to be one of the darkest corners of Hollywood.
Card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Now, Terrence Howard isn't exactly a newcomer to controversy. His reputation has always walked a fine line, brilliant on screen, unpredictable off of it. But this time, his words have created a firestorm that's almost impossible to ignore. In a candid and jaw-dropping interview, Howard claimed that Diddy once invited him to what was supposed to be a professional meeting, only for the situation to take a bizarre and deeply uncomfortable turn.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
According to Howard, what began as an offer to collaborate as an acting coach quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. The implication? That Diddy's motives weren't purely professional. And let's not forget Howard's cryptic comments about the so-called man card, a phrase he used repeatedly during his interview. He didn't mince words when he described how certain Hollywood players, in his view, trade their integrity and identity in exchange for fame and power. And though he never explicitly spelled it out, his tone and choice of words painted a picture that was impossible to misunderstand.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, you...
Howard's credibility, of course, is already a topic of debate. This is a man who's had his own share of public scandals, from altercations to offbeat scientific theories that left many scratching their heads. But here's the thing. Whether you believe every word he says or not, his allegations tap into something much larger. A growing unease about the entertainment industry's underbelly, where power dynamics blur the lines between opportunity and exploitation. And Howard didn't stop at his personal experience. He pulled back the curtain further, talking about a culture where actors and artists are pressured into compromising situations under the guise of networking or career advancement. It's the kind of claim that makes you wonder how many others might have similar stories but are too afraid to speak out.
I thought Diddy would be throwing all his celebrity mates under the bus.
I mean, that could potentially be coming when it's time for court and when it's time for him to testify. But what we're seeing right now is how important public relations really are to Sean Combs. He's desperately trying to control the narrative behind bars, allowing his attorneys to do documentaries.
And then there's Janice Combs, Diddy's fiercely protective mother, who's not letting these allegations slide without a fight. If Diddy's empire is under attack, Janice has made it clear she's ready to go to war. Reports suggest that she's already filed a lawsuit against Howard, accusing him of defamation and seeking damages that could run into staggering amounts. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Insiders are buzzing with rumors that Janice is preparing a legal blitzkrieg, drafting lawsuits against anyone and everyone who dares to speak out against her son. It's a bold, some would say desperate strategy, one that could either silence critics or make them louder. And as aggressive as it may seem, it's not entirely surprising given the close and complicated bond between Janice and her son.
What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is, he's got a lot of enemies.
For years, Janice has been a fixture in Diddy's life, often described as his rock, his greatest supporter, and his fiercest defender. But what many might not know is that Janice's own past is shrouded in intrigue. Whispers about the wild parties she allegedly hosted during Diddy's childhood have resurfaced, painting a picture of an environment that was anything but conventional. Some claim these gatherings were more than just social events. They were chaotic, boundary-pushing spectacles that may have exposed a young Diddy to influences most children wouldn't encounter. Could this have played a role in shaping the man he would become? It's a question that looms large, especially as more details about Diddy's alleged behavior come to light.
Well, certainly there's a lot of information that needs to be substantiated, investigated, and those kinds of things. But when we look at people who become offenders, we oftentimes see early exposure to whether that's or actual behavior, and we oftentimes see that within the family.
Janice, for her part, has been vocal in her defense of her son, releasing emotional statements that frame him as a victim of a relentless media witch hunt. She's painted a picture of a man who, despite his flaws, is being unfairly targeted by opportunists looking for a payout. But her words haven't exactly silenced the critics. In fact, they've only added fuel to the fire, with some accusing her of enabling her son's alleged actions by turning a blind eye, or worse, actively covering for him. And this is where things get even murkier, because Janice isn't just defending Diddy, she's also defending herself. After all, if the allegations against Diddy are true, what does that say about the environment he was raised in? It's a question that no amount of legal posturing can easily answer.
That kind of environment growing up in is going to have an impact on a child growing up. Now, it doesn't make excuses for what people do in adulthood, and the form that can take really depends on a lot of different things, including things such as what are the family values? Are the family values about, being open and honest about things, or if there's trauma in a family, do families deal with it, or how is that child raised?
But let's not forget the broader context here. Diddy isn't the first powerful figure to face allegations of this nature, and he certainly won't be the last. The entertainment industry has long been dogged by rumors of secret parties, backroom deals, and a hidden culture of coercion and manipulation. And if Terrence Howard's comments are anything to go by, Diddy's alleged actions are just the tip of the iceberg. Howard spoke about a culture where people are pimped out by their own ambition, where the desire for fame and success becomes a trap that's nearly impossible to escape. It's a damning indictment not just of Diddy, but of an entire system that seems to thrive on exploiting the vulnerable.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
And then there are the allegations about Diddy's infamous freak-off parties, events that, according to lawsuits and insider accounts, were less about celebration and more about control. These parties allegedly involved elaborate setups, with participants flown in, rooms prepared, and a level of organization that suggests this wasn't some spontaneous night of fun. The details are lurid and shocking, involving costumes, masks, and what some describe as ritualistic humiliation. And while Diddy's legal team has dismissed these claims as absurd and fabricated, the sheer volume of allegations is hard to ignore.
Today, just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll start to see that.
It's not just the details of these parties that are disturbing, it's the implications. If even a fraction of these allegations are true, it raises serious questions about who else might have been involved or complicit. After all, events like these don't happen in a vacuum. They require planning, coordination, and most importantly, silence. And that silence, as we're starting to see, is beginning to crack. Whether it's Terrence Howard speaking out, alleged victims filing lawsuits, or insiders leaking stories to the press, it's clear that the dam is breaking. But as more and more details emerge, one can't help but wonder, how deep does this go? And if Diddy's empire is crumbling, is he going to take others down with him?
In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and at the hands of Diddy.
The legal battles are heating up, the accusations are piling on, and the stakes couldn't be higher. But for all the noise surrounding Diddy, there's an eerie sense of quiet from some of the industry's biggest players. Stars who were once closely associated with him, whether as collaborators, friends, or protégés, are keeping their distance, their silence speaking volumes. And then, there's the looming question of what happens next. Will this scandal finally force a reckoning within the entertainment industry, or will it be swept under the rug like so many before it? One thing's for sure, this story is far from over, and as the walls close in on Diddy, it feels like the entire industry is holding its breath, waiting to see what or who comes out next. But as the silence from Hollywood's elite grows louder, the cracks are beginning to show and the whispers are turning into full-blown roars. The entertainment world, once a fortress of carefully managed images and untouchable legacies, is now teetering on the brink of chaos. The fallout from Diddy's scandal is spreading like wildfire, and it's clear that no one is safe. Not the moguls, not the icons, not even the so-called untouchables. The question isn't just about what's already come to light, it's about how deep the rot goes and who else is about to get dragged into the storm. And make no mistake, this storm is only picking up speed.
So remember when I said Diddy mother might be the originator of the freak-offs? All right, so apparently tomorrow there's the Peacock is dropping the Diddy documentary. It's called Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy, and the doc gets into Diddy's childhood and his experience growing up in connection to the lawsuit and assault allegations he's currently facing.
Behind the scenes, there's a palpable panic spreading through the industry. Publicists are working overtime, lawyers are fielding calls at all hours, and some of Diddy's former collaborators are reportedly scrambling to distance themselves from him as fast as humanly possible. But here's the problem. When you've built an entire career on connections, parties, and alliances, you can't just snap your fingers and make it all disappear. For years, Diddy's name was synonymous with power, influence, and excess. He wasn't just a music mogul, he was a gatekeeper, a kingmaker, someone who could make or break careers with a single phone call. And now, that same network of power is under the microscope, with everyone asking the same question. Who else knew?
According to the Rolling Stone, the doc features an alleged childhood friend of Puff's, hip-hop producer Tim Dog Patterson. He alleged that Janice, Diddy's mom, would often throw parties at Diddy's childhood home. He says that during the parties, it wasn't uncommon to walk into rooms where adults was having and that was just their normal.
Take the celebrities who were regulars at Diddy's infamous gatherings. These weren't just industry nobodies trying to climb the ladder. These were A-listers, household names, people who have spent years cultivating squeaky clean images. And yet, their names keep popping up in connection to events that, frankly, sound more like scenes out of a dystopian thriller than your average Hollywood. The lawsuits and insider leaks paint a picture of gatherings that were anything but glamorous once you scratched beneath the surface. And while Diddy's legal team has been quick to dismiss these claims as baseless, the sheer number of allegations makes it hard to ignore. The real kicker? Some of these high-profile attendees are now being accused, not of wrongdoing, but of complicity, of turning a blind eye to behavior that they either witnessed firsthand or at the very least heard about through the grapevine.
Talking about the parties, Tim says, verbatim, that's what we were privy to. This was what we were fed. Was it desensitizing us? I'm sure it was. Were we aware of it? No, that was just Saturday night. In the doc, per Rolling Stone, this type of childhood is alleged to be why Tim, the longtime friend of Diddy's, Puff believes that Puff found himself in the position he is in now.
What's truly chilling is the level of detail emerging from the lawsuits. One plaintiff described being led through a series of hidden tunnels connecting high-profile properties, passageways allegedly used to shuttle guests between locations without them ever being seen by the outside world. These tunnels, the lawsuits claim, were an open secret amongst the elite, a way to maintain discretion and control. Another lawsuit mentioned the use of confiscated phones, where every attendee's device would reportedly be locked away before entering the premises, ensuring that no unauthorized photos, texts, or calls could later surface as evidence. It's a level of secrecy that feels more like the plot of a spy thriller than a party, and it raises an obvious question. What exactly were they trying so hard to keep hidden?
Look at Diddy, for instance. Let's take a look at him. Let's take a look at, he has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much, but what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on right now.
And then there's the mounting testimony from former staff members, drivers, assistants, housekeepers who allege that they were coerced into playing roles in these events. One former employee claims she was instructed to procure specific items for these parties, items that, according to the lawsuit, were meant to enhance the atmosphere in ways that she described as deeply unsettling. Another recounted being tasked with cleanup duties that went far beyond the usual scope of post-party maintenance. She described finding remnants of scenarios that were, in her words, unexplainable, and being threatened with termination if she asked too many questions or failed to comply.
To not be involved with a famous singer, to not come out, here's the price. And that they're just selling to the individuals that are in those, this is what I heard, they're selling those videos. So if you're Tommy X, and Tommy X is a big, big movie star, and he was at some of the Diddy parties, he was in one of those bedrooms with 3 other men, and he's happily married to a woman, and blah. Tommy doesn't want that video to come out.
The most damning claims, however, might come from the financial records now being subpoenaed. Multiple lawsuits have alleged that specific payments, often disguised as consulting fees or bonuses, were funneled through shell companies to pay for party logistics, including the transportation of guests under questionable circumstances. If these claims are proven, they could open a Pandora's box of accountability, implicating not just Diddy but a network of enablers who allegedly helped orchestrate and cover up these events. On top of that, insiders suggest that investigators are now looking into whether any of these payments violated federal laws, which could escalate this scandal into an even bigger legal nightmare.
Same thing for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the interesting thing about the Epstein and the theory about Epstein is we know he filmed people for sure on that island. He has a lot of movies, a lot of films of people that are very, very powerful political figures and entertainers, business people. So do you really believe that Jeffrey Epstein himself? Of
course not.
Of course not. Yeah.
And let's not forget the music industry's role in all of this. For decades, labels and executives have operated with a kind of unchecked power that's almost impossible to fathom. Deals were made behind closed doors, careers were launched or buried based on personal whims, and the people at the top were rarely, if ever, held accountable. Diddy wasn't just a participant in this system, he was one of its architects. Bad Boy Records wasn't just a label, it was an empire, one that thrived on the same culture of excess and secrecy that now threatens to bring it all crashing down. And while Diddy is the one in the spotlight right now, you have to wonder how many other executives are sitting in their offices watching this unfold and wondering if they're next.
Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart. Super business, I mean, he's very successful.
The media, of course, is having a field day. Every day brings a new headline, a new allegation, a new source close to the situation, spilling details that are as juicy as they are horrifying. But for all the noise, there's an undercurrent of something darker, an unspoken understanding that this story is far from over, and that what we've seen so far might just be the tip of the iceberg. The lawsuits alone are enough to make your head spin. There are the civil cases, with plaintiffs alleging everything from emotional manipulation to outright coercion. Then there's the criminal case, a legal behemoth that could very well redefine how the entertainment industry operates. And through it all, Diddy's team has maintained his innocence, painting him as the victim of a calculated smear campaign. But with every new revelation, that narrative becomes harder to sell.
I'll tell you, I don't know how much, I don't like to say things that I know unless I see it. That there's a little difference, but was it discussed? Was there descriptions from people I know that were at those? Yes, but here's another thing. So how many of these big entertainment parties and over the years and everything with as successful as you are, have you been around? Does anyone ever come up to you at a certain hour and say, okay, it's time to go? At those parties, they did.
And here's where things get really messy. The ripple effects aren't just limited to Diddy's immediate circle. The scandal has reignited conversations about the darker side of fame, the unspoken rules that govern Hollywood, and the price some are willing to pay for a shot at the spotlight. The Me Too movement may have shone a light on some of these issues, but this feels different. This isn't just about individuals. It's about a system that seems to thrive on exploitation and silence. For every person brave enough to come forward, how many more are out there, too scared or too ashamed to speak up? And how many of them are watching this unfold, wondering if now is the time to finally tell their stories? Even more chilling is the idea that some of these stories might never see the light of day. The entertainment industry has a long history of burying its secrets, of using money and influence to make problems disappear. And while the current wave of allegations has certainly put Diddy in the hot seat, there's a growing sense that he's not the only one with skeletons in his closet. The so-called open, secret culture of Hollywood is being dragged into the spotlight, and it's becoming increasingly clear that the industry isn't just complicit, it's actively built to protect its own.
I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
And yet, for all the noise, there are still so many unanswered questions. What about the other names being whispered in connection to these allegations? What about the celebrities who are allegedly present at these infamous gatherings? What about the executives who turned a blind eye, the managers who prioritized profits over people, the publicists who worked overtime to keep the scandals out of the headlines? The deeper you dig, the more it becomes clear that this isn't just about one man or one set of allegations. This is about an entire culture of power, privilege, and impunity that has gone unchecked for far too long. As the lawsuits pile up and the legal battles heat up, one thing is certain: this story is far from over. The walls are closing in, and the industry is bracing itself for what could be the biggest reckoning it has ever faced. But as the spotlight turns to Hollywood's dark underbelly, you have to wonder, how many more secrets are waiting to be uncovered? And when the dust finally settles, what will be left standing? All right, that's it for today's deep dive, but this story is evolving by the minute, and we want to hear your thoughts. Do you think this is just the beginning of Hollywood's reckoning? Who do you think will be the next big name to get caught in the crossfire? Drop your theories in the comments, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.